there, savvy homebuyers and sellers. This is Jeff Valeri, the Village Guru, Mississauga real estate broker, and welcome to episode 7 of the coronavirus real estate market update. This update will cover the week of May 6th to May 12th, 2020. In today's episode, we'll go over the numbers and we'll also look at the question, is it a good time to buy or sell in this market? So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Well, welcome to week 8 of the lockdown here in Ontario. Looks like cases are slowly going down. The government's announcing more openings, but very cautiously. And I think I can see cautious optimism out there that things are moving in the right direction. Now, we're not there yet, and I still believe it's a number of weeks or even months, but anything is better than what we had, and hopefully it keeps getting better. But we're not here to talk about that today. Today, we are here to look at the real estate numbers. So when we compare sales in Mississauga for the week of May 6th to May 12th, both in 2020 and 2019, what we notice are the amount of new listings on the market are down 55% compared to the same time last year, while the number of sales is down 65% compared to the same time last year. Again, like every week so far, there's no surprise in those numbers. However, I have noticed a slow and steady climb in the amount of action going on in real estate. Also, while I don't have any stats on it, it's important to note that I see an uptick in web activity associated with real estate searches and even on my own websites, which gets a lot of traffic from home buyers searching. So those are all good signs that people are getting ready for this market to open up. All right, so now we get to the number one question. Jeff, what's going on with house prices? So again, just like in every episode, we're gonna look at semi-detached homes in Mississauga between the prices of $600,000 and $900,000 because it's important to compare similar properties in a similar area in order to come up with numbers that truly work. Now, when we compare last week to the first week of March, which was before all this coronavirus started, we see that sale prices are still down about 5.5% when looking at semi-detached properties. And to put that in numbers, it means that the average sale price last week for a semi-detached in Mississauga was $796,000, while at the peak of the market at the beginning of March, we were looking at about $843,000. So a good chunk of change, however, not the big dire crash that was predicted. So next, let's look at inventory on market versus the number of homes that are sold or terminated to give us an idea of the absorption rate. Because when we look at real estate markets, while nobody has a crystal ball, looking at the amount of homes for sale is a good indicator of what to expect in the future. Now, looking at our rolling chart that we've been using for the last 7 weeks, we can see that the number of sales and terminated properties has remained level throughout the month of April. Now, when we look at listings, we can see more of a sporadic behavior in listings. From the beginning of March, we saw a steep drop in the amount of listings as sellers started to pull back. And then we see kind of like a uptick in listings and then a drop in listings and another uptick in listings. A lot of sellers will put their homes up for sale, test the market. If they don't get what they want, maybe they suspend the listing for a week or two, refresh it, do the good old cancel relist in order to see if they can generate more business. And that's why it's not as smooth as the sales and terminated. Now, when we get to the last week, what I did notice is the amount of listings has shot past the number of homes being taken off the market. And we haven't had this since the middle of March. And I think that indicates with the weather getting warmer, it's now springtime. A lot of sellers that have been holding off for the last couple of months are now deciding to come to market to hopefully get a sale. So this is a good sign that possibly the market is starting to pick up. However, I want to be cautious and really keep an eye on this because over the next week to 2 weeks, we need to see those sales start to also come up also, which will indicate that the market is moving in tandem. So keep an eye on that number because that's going to be the best figure to let you know or give you a hint at least as to what might happen over the next couple of months. All right, so now let's answer the question, is it a good time to buy or sell in this market? So first off, it's not an easy question to answer because it all depends on your circumstances and also your options out there because everybody is different. However, what I will do in this episode is just go over some fundamentals that might get you to think about it and put it in perspective, and I hope it helps you. So first thing to consider when it comes to buying a home, and this is the classic dilemma of all home buyers, is what's more important? The deal that I'm getting in a down market or the thought that I could lose out by buying now and the prices keep on going down? Nobody ever never has an answer for this. And more importantly, you shouldn't try and time the real estate market. Yes, we look at trends, we look at what's going on, but real estate is not a stock that's day traded. Think of real estate as a big boat. So yes, it goes up and down with the tide. However, if you're to turn a boat around, boats don't turn on a dime. They take a while to turn. Not like a stock where one day it could be at a record high and then drop 10% overnight because of trading and speculation and things like that. So keep in mind that real estate does move slower. However, I caution you not to try to time the market, because most people get it wrong and they end up missing out on opportunities thinking that maybe it'll go down a little farther. Instead, what we'll do is we'll look at some previous cases because that might give you a hint as to what's going on. So again, I like to go back to this chart that I made of the subprime mortgage housing crisis back in 2007 to 2009. And this chart is showing semi-detached houses sold in Mississauga, the average selling price versus the amount of homes for sale on the market, or what we like to call inventory. And what you can see is when all the bad stuff happened in October of 2008, we saw a steep drop in prices and corresponding a lot of listings came on the market at once. Now, unlike today, where we're not seeing the amount of listings skyrocket like that, but we have saw a slight decrease in the selling price of the homes. Now, second, back, and I can tell you this because I was a realtor, back in December, January, February, March, a lot of buyers were on the sideline just like they are now. They wanted to buy. However, they were waiting it out just to see because, again, they were worried that maybe if I bought now, the prices would continue to go down. However, what a lot of people failed to see was that inventory was tightening up. And as realtors, we can see that less houses are for sale, things are starting to move. What I can say about this is the one advantage that I think real estate people have is we see these trends evolve a couple of weeks before the general public, because the general public usually listens to the news, which has to wait to the end of the month to see the statistics for the previous month. And again, what happened here was the same thing as what might happen in this case. You had a few buyers take advantage of these price discounts before the market totally rebounded and prices started to shoot up very rapidly. So again, when buying, look at it as a long-term play. The biggest mistake you can make is looking at it as a stock that's traded on the market on a day-to-day basis to try and time it. Factors that I look for the long-term health of real estate is number one, how's the economy gonna be? And not just in 2 months' time, but maybe in 2 years to 5 years' time. Because when you move into a house, it should always be for a minimum of 4 to 5 years. That way you can ride out any market fluctuations. The next question you should look at is, what are interest rates gonna be like over the future? Do you see them going up, or do you see them staying low like they have been for the past 15 years? And finally, the biggest factor for real estate prices and how the market's doing is what's going to happen with supply and demand over the future. Do you see the population in the GTA continuing to grow, or do you see it subtracting and shrinking? Because ultimately, real estate really comes down to this. You have so many buyers and you have so many sellers, and if the amount of buyers is more than the amount of sellers, the house will go up in price. If you don't have enough buyers and too many sellers, you'll see a drop in price. Everything else we talk about is all factors that basically affect these two major aspects of real estate, supply and demand. So do your research. Is the population in Ontario going to grow? I'm personally going to bet it's going to grow quite rapidly over the next 10 years. But that's for you to make the call. Another question you can ask is, how many housing starts are happening in the GTA? I've looked at the numbers. I'm going to make a video about this in the near future, but we have a severe shortage in the amount of new homes being constructed in the GTA, or the Golden Horseshoe for that matter. They're not keeping up with the amount of people moving here. So when I look at those factors in combination, I see a market in the long term without a substantial change in either the interest rates or the population growth in this province. I don't see many things changing. But again, I'm a real estate agent. Do your own research if this is something that concerns you. Now for sellers, I don't want to leave you out. Yes, prices have gone down slightly since they were in March. And yes, you could wait it out and wait for your price to go back up. However, you have to consider a couple things when you're selling your home. Number one, 90% of the time you have another home to buy. Unless you're cashing out, then you're going to be buying another home. So the question is, are you moving up? That means buying a more expensive property, or are you moving down into a more affordable property? So let's start off with the easy one. If you're moving up in a down market, the buyer actually benefits. So yes, maybe you lose 5% on the house that you're selling. However, if you're buying a much more expensive house, at a minimum, you're buying it for less than 5%. But if we look at the charts we looked at last week with inventory in Mississauga compared to housing prices, you can see with detached houses, the inventory is way higher than a semi-detached or a condo townhouse, which means the selling price will probably have even come down even more, which means you'll be netting more in this market than if you wait for your house to go back up in value. I know it doesn't make sense right off the bat, but we need to look at real estate in a logical way and not an emotional way, because it's not how much your house is worth right now. Because if you're not actually selling and cashing out, it's really irrelevant. It's what you're getting in trade for it at this time. Now, if you're cashing out, you may choose to wait a few months, ride this out. At the end of the day, if you've been in your home for 10, 15 years, you've made a lot of money, and you may choose just to sell now because you know what the prices are, because you don't want to take the risk that they could also go down also. Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed my market update for the week of May 6th to May 12th, 2020, and also my little discussion on whether it's a good time to buy or sell in this market. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends. I'm Jeff O'Leary, the Village Guru. Have yourself a safe day.